What's good, Steeler Nation? My name is Jack Sperry, and this is Steelers Talk. Thanks for spending part of your Tuesday to talk some Steelers football with us. We got a great show for you today. This is a video that I have been waiting to do for a long time. My perfect Pittsburgh Steelers 2023 offseason. At this point, there's still a lot of things that need to happen in the offseason, but as we kick off the offseason here in 2023 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm going to be breaking down players to cut, players to re-sign, players to go get in free agency. I am excited to break it all down with you guys, but before we get into today's video, go ahead and subscribe to the channel right now if you haven't already. We are on the road, guys, to 20K. And once we get 20K, we are going to fill up a cooler of Gatorade and we are going to dump it on because 20K is such a big milestone, guys. I can't wait to celebrate with you this offseason. And, we're just a couple away, guys. We have some great draft coverage coming up, free agency coverage, all this offseason coverage that we've been waiting to unveil to you guys here these last couple weeks. We're finally going to unveil it. So if you want to get access to all of that great content, go ahead and subscribe right now and turn on notifications so you always get notified when we put out new videos. All right, so now let's get into today's action. Step one of the offseason. First matter of business, fire Matt Canada, and I would hire Miami Dolphins QB coach Darrell Bevell to replace him. Let's take a look at Bevell's credentials here. He has 15 years of NFL offensive play calling experience, most of it in Seattle, and he actually won a Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator with the Seahawks. Yes, that team was known more for its defense, but Russell Wilson had some of his best years statistically and grew under Darrell Bevell's leadership. And then he also he's been a coordinator since the early, mid-2000s. So, his stuff kind of got a bit outdated when he was in Jacksonville and with Detroit the last couple years. So he went to Miami to learn the new school, third generation of the West Coast offense with Mike McDaniel, who runs a Shanahan-style West Coast system. And, he kind of learned the importance of crossing routes, all these different things that they implement in their offense, RPOs. And, Bevell is somebody that I think is ready to emerge back as an offensive coordinator candidate because he's an experienced play caller. That's something that I like. That's important. That's important, guys, because you bring in someone that's unproven. You don't really know if they know what to do in certain situations. This guy has been there and he's done that. He knows what works in certain situations, and I like that. And then he's also developed young QB talent in the past. Russell Wilson, guys like Trevor Lawrence, right? He's worked with these guys before, so he knows if he comes to the Steelers, he's going to be working with Kenny Pickett, somebody that is going to need a bit more development here if he's going to become a bona fide franchise quarterback, and Bevell can be somebody that can help that process along. And then finally, like I said, he would bring a new school West Coast offense to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I think it would be a perfect system for Kenny Pickett. Gets him on the run a lot, I should say. Rollouts, QB rollouts, PA boots, all these things that they do. Lots of play action, lots of zone running schemes would be great for Najee Harris as well. I think that this would be an excellent offense for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I would bring him in. But let me know in the comments section, would Darrell Bevell be a good offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Type Y for yes if you agree with me, or if you disagree, type N for no. This is the pinned comment on today's video. So whenever, there's an ad break, just go down into the comment section, find that pinned comment. It'll be right there at the top and answer today's question. All right, now step two here. You got to make some cuts here. So the Steelers have about $13 million in cap space as they currently have it right now. And, they need to make a couple of different moves here, I think, to make some space for free agency. So these are the guys that I would cut. Chukwuma Okorafor, that one's a tough one. I wouldn't do it if I wasn't going to be signing some of these players that I'm going to be revealing later in the video, because he does have $6 million in dead cap, but you do get $7 million in savings. He didn't have a great year this year. I'd say roll with Dan Moore Jr. and somebody else next year. Get rid of Okorafor. And then Miles Jack, I would restructure him, but he only has 1 year left on his deal, so you can't really restructure that deal. And he didn't play well enough to garner almost $12 million in a cap hit next year for the Steelers. So I think you take the $8 million in cap savings by releasing him. Mitchell Trubisky doesn't seem like he wants to be on the Steelers next year anyway, and you get $8 million in savings. That's a pretty easy one. And then Levi Wallace, another guy that I was kind of shaky on because he is a good player. He is somebody that can contribute, but with some of the players that I have the Steelers picking up, he didn't really make sense to keep. So I would rather take the $4 million in savings. Ahkello Witherspoon, another easy one. Not a very good player in my opinion. I think he's got all the physical talent in the world, but none of the discipline, none of the technique. $4 million, that's an easy one for me. Montravius Adams, not a good player. I'm sorry, guys. Both of the nose tackles, both Alualu and Adams, were just not cutting it for the Steelers this year in run protection. You get 2.5 with him released, and then Gunnar Olszewski, Killebrew, neither guy really contributed that much. Killebrew did have a blocked punt, but I'm not going to keep a guy just because of one splash play on special teams a year. So those are the guys that I would cut if I were the Steelers. It's okay if you guys disagree with that, but there's also a couple of areas where the Steelers could get even more cap space, right, with restructuring contracts. TJ Watt has a bunch of base salary and we could definitely transition a lot of that to a signing bonus, which would save the team cap space over the next couple of years if they wanted to do that. If they wanted to sign like a couple of very big free agents, they could do that. Same thing with Minkah. He's got a couple more years on his deal. Lots of base salary that could be transitioned in a restructured contract. So if the Steelers really need more than what they would have, which would be $50.5 million or about that, if they made the cuts I suggest, then that could happen. But, at the end of the day, you don't really want to do a restructure unless you really feel like you have to get somebody big, in my opinion. All right, guys, so coming up, I'm going to be going over free agency and the guys that I think the Steelers should re-sign, as well as a couple of players that I think they should grab in free agency. But before we do that, let's have a word from our sponsor at BetUS, which is the sportsbook partner here at Chat Sports. And they're offering you guys an insane deal here, 125% deposit bonus when you use promo code Steelers125 at chatsports.com/bet. Okay, guys, so pretty much what this means is if you put a deposit in of $100 to $600, they're going to give you 125% of that amount back to you to use on your bets. The NFL playoffs are right around the corner, guys. It's a fantastic time to be a sports bettor. I love sports betting. It's one of the most exciting things that you can be as a sports fan, in my opinion. So if you love sports betting, go to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code Steelers125 and get your 125% deposit bonus today. All right, so now, first things first, let's go over the players that I would re-sign. So in yesterday's video, I actually covered the bases here quite a bit, but here are the guys that I would bring back in this scenario. Number one, Cam Sutton. Cam Sutton is the CB1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers as it sits right now. The Steelers do need to get somebody that I think has a bit more upside than Sutton, but Sutton is a very solid cornerback too. And right now, SportTrack.com projects that the Steelers can get him at 3 years, $7.5 million a year. And I think that's a really, really good deal because you look at cornerback contracts, especially the level of Sutton, sometimes they can get upwards of $10 million. So if SportTrack thinks that we can get him for $7.5 million a year for the next 3 years, I'm going to take that. Terrell Edmunds, it's an even better deal in my opinion. All right, only $3.5 million per year according to SportTrack.com market value. And if you can get him for 3 years at that value, I think that is a fantastic deal for the Pittsburgh Steelers, given that Terrell Edmunds consistently grades as an above-average safety in the National Football League. He already has great chemistry with Minkah Fitzpatrick. I think bringing him on would be a fantastic re-sign for the Steelers. And then DeMonte KZ. I really liked that 3-safety package that the Steelers had this year with KZ, Edmunds, and Fitzpatrick on the field. I thought KZ played really, really well. And right now, SportTrack says the Steelers could potentially get him at $3 million per year for a 2-year contract. I really like that deal for the Steelers as well. I'd bring him back. Derek Watt, bring him back again. Really good fullback. And then, he could be a potential catalyst for bringing J.J. Watt out of retirement if he comes back as well. So I'd bring him. And then Robert Spillane as a backup, $2 million a year, someone that knows the defense, force it. And if you do this, guys, if you sign Robert Spillane, I know he's not a fantastic player, but if you do this, you don't have to feel like you absolutely have to draft a linebacker in the draft. You bring him in, you at least have somebody that can play the position at just $2 million a year. So the updated cap space after these re-signings would be about $32 million to use on NFL free agents. And I think that this is quite a bit of space. I think they could make some real damage. And for me, the big ticket item, the one person that I think the Steelers could really splurge on this offseason is Isaiah Wynn. Left tackle of the future for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to be a pricey one, guys. $15.4 million per season for 5 years is what SportTrack.com says is the market value for Isaiah Wynn. And, I think that if you bring this guy in, he's big, he's lean, he's got that left tackle type NFL body that can take on the best edge rushers in the game. With Kenny Pickett, someone that maybe doesn't have the best pocket presence in the world, you need a really good left tackle for the future. And I don't want to leave that up to chance in the draft. I think I want to go get somebody that I know can play the position and someone that can do it well right away. And Dan Moore Jr. is not cutting it, guys. So if I'm going to spend big money on one position in this year's free agency class, I'm going to go left tackle, and I'm going to go get Isaiah Wynn to be the left tackle, the anchor of that offensive line for the Steelers for the next 5 years at least. All right, guys, but what do you think? Should the Steelers address left tackle in free agency or in the draft? Let me know in the comment section right now by typing F if you think free agency, or type D if you think they should go draft somebody in the first round. All right, second, another offensive tackle here, Ja'Wuan James. You guys know this name. He's been with the Ravens for a while, right? Just a one-year contract. He's getting a bit older. He hasn't really played a whole lot this year because of Morgan Moses and Ronnie Stanley kind of anchoring that Ravens really, really good offensive line. But Ja'Wuan James is someone that's played a lot of football in the National Football League. And if you bring him in, this is what the offensive line would likely look like going into the draft, right? You got Isaiah Wynn at left tackle, Ja'Wuan James at right tackle. If you cut Chukwuma Okorafor, you still have Dan Moore Jr. on the roster. He could potentially play right tackle if he beats out Ja'Wuan James in camp. But I think that this gives you a pretty solid foundation going into the draft. Kevin Dotson, I think, is a severely underrated player. He actually graded in the top 5 among guards in pass protection this year. James Daniels is a really solid piece. And then Mason Cole was the 11th highest graded center according to Pro Football Focus this year. So I think if you have this offensive line going into the draft, if you're the Steelers, I think you feel pretty darn good with where you're at because tackle is really where you need to improve if you're the Steelers. Then you got Jacoby Brissett, backup quarterback here, okay? So, Mason Rudolph, unrestricted free agent, he's likely gone. I have them cutting Mitchell Trubisky. I have them bringing in Jacoby Brissett because if God forbid, Kenny Pickett gets hurt next year, Jacoby Brissett, we know, is somebody that can come in playing a West Coast offense because in this scenario, Darrell Bevell is the offensive coordinator. He'd be bringing a West Coast system. Jacoby Brissett can operate this type of offense and win games. He did it in Cleveland this year. I thought he played pretty decently in Cleveland this year. He's not somebody that's going to be elite. He's not going to be somebody that overtakes Kenny Pickett as the starting quarterback or anything, but he's somebody that if, God forbid, Kenny Pickett goes down, he can be that solid backup option and win games for the Steelers. And, this is a position up next here, punter. Right, Presley Harvin III just isn't cutting it, guys. I have them getting Sam Martin. He finished out the year in Denver. And, thing about punters, guys, is that they're pretty replaceable, right? You can get a replacement punter for $1.25 million, right? Yeah, and Presley Harvin III is bad, right? We saw it this year as one of the worst punters in the National Football League, and I just think it's time to cut bait with him. Go get somebody, that's played in Buffalo, that's played in Denver, that's, played in cold weather, somebody that can really send that football even in inclement conditions. I think Sam Martin would be a good Pittsburgh Steelers punter, again, in my opinion. All right, now, finally, this is another kind of big ticket item here, but I have J.J. Watt on a team-friendly $7 million contract for 1 season. In my opinion, guys, J.J. Watt, I think he's just playing too good of football to just walk away. I think he still has a lot of good football left in him. If he stays retired, I'm not saying that he's making the wrong decision or anything like that. It's his life. He can do what he wants. But I still think that if he comes back, he can still be a very good player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Still has a lot of good football in him. I think TJ and Derek are going to be telling him about Coach T, about Kenny Pickett, about how much they believe in this team and how they can potentially win a Super Bowl. And I think that JJ is going to be like, I want to be a part of that. I want to go play football with my brothers in Pittsburgh, for a fantastic franchise. And then I think he would be willing to take a team-friendly deal for $7 million to give him the best chance at a title, to allow the team to go get the Isaiah Wynn signing, right? To go and get a backup quarterback in Jacoby Brissett, to make these other additions so that they have a shot to put something together next season and do something truly special. I think this would be bloody fantastic. Again, this is the perfect scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers for me. But let me know, will J.J. Watt be in the black and gold? Will he be a Pittsburgh Steeler in 2023? Type 1 for yes or type 0 for no. All right, guys, so this was just part 1 of my perfect Steelers 2023 offseason, okay? We covered free agency. We covered Matt Canada replacement. We did a bunch of stuff today, but it was just too much to put everything in one video. So tomorrow, we're going to be doing part 2, which is the Steelers 2023 Mock Draft 1.0 here on the channel. I can't wait to share with you guys. I think it's going to be fantastic. We're going to go over the entire plan once it's all figured out. And we appreciate you here at Steeler Nation, guys. We really do here at Steelers Talk. We really appreciate the support that you give to the channel, watching our videos every day, especially during the off season, guys. Your support means the world to us. And if you made it to the end of the video, if you are a true Yinzer, go ahead and type "Here we go" in all caps to let us know that you were here. All right, guys, I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for the support, Steeler Nation, and until tomorrow, peace.